All right, we're all set.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome. This is the Hull Planning Board meeting on June 24th, 2026. The time is 7:34 p.m. I will do a roll call to call the meeting to order. Abby,
Here.
Lisa,
You're on mute. Sorry, here. Sorry.
Nancy,
Here.
Nathan,
Here.
Shandell,
Here.
and Megan Riley, and Chris Diorio and Matt O'Sullivan, town planner and assistant town planner. Okay, today's agenda, we have minutes, we have the reorganization of the board, and then we'll be going into a discussion of some follow-up items on the master plan. And then we have a Paragon Dunes modification discussion, which we have some guests here to assist with that discussion. We'll then have a discussion of planning board goals for 2026 and then come back to the zoning amendments discussion. We've got project updates and also committee, subcommittee updates and discussion. So a full agenda. If it gets to be too late, I will table some of the agenda items for the next meeting if we're, getting too close to what I consider to be an unreasonable hour. If based on whether or not once we reorganize, we'll see. Yeah, so I will when we go into the minutes, and then we will go take up the reorganization topic. So for the minutes, we have April 22nd, May 14th, and May 27th. For April 22nd and May 14th, we had some previous discussion, some asks for clarification from the recording and some updates. We'll give folks a minute to take a look at things, and then if there are any motions to approve. Okay, with the minutes for April 22nd, once folks are ready, I will accept a motion.
I move to approve the minutes of April 22nd.
Motion by Peyton. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Schulte. Any discussion?
I think I had one comment. This is for the 22nd of April?
Yes.
Okay. Double check. Yeah. I think all of the changes were made except at the end. My comment that I believe my memory, because I was there, was that I did mention that the chair had selected only the petitions, my petitions, and I mentioned that I was running for planning board. The minutes don't reflect that that was part of that issue, part of that issue. So I had asked if people would if someone would could listen to that meeting again. I don't have access to it. Um, did Matt, do you?
Yes.
Okay,
I
so did you listen to the meeting?
Yeah, you didn't mention that you were running for planning board at that.
Nobody said that at all in that part of the conversation?
No, that wasn't said.
Okay, okay, all right.
Okay, so we have a motion by Peyton, a second by Schulte. I will go around it for a roll call because we're on Zoom. Abby,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Nathan,
Aye.
Shandell,
Aye.
and Riley, aye. It's unanimous. The motion to approve the minutes from April 22nd passes. Okay. Let's go on to the next set of minutes, which is the planning board minutes from May 14th, 2026.
I have a comment. Is it okay?
Yes, go ahead, Lisa.
Okay. On the second page, the around the paragraph that starts with Marie Wentling of Mayflower Road. I had commented or written when I sent the comments that I remember very clearly that the members confirmed that they had only received a draft approval letter with the boilerplate conditions. Everybody had acknowledged that they hadn't received anything. They hadn't received that. They hadn't approved it. And then it was noted by someone that his draft conditions didn't address any of the board's stated concerns. I think it's important for that to be reflected in the minutes there. There was discussion. There was concern that those conditions had not been approved by the planning board members.
I agree.
So the board wouldn't have approved those conditions at that point. Although there was a draft provided to the board.
Well, the issue was that the applicant had received the conditions, the fact that they were boilerplate conditions, that they didn't reflect any of the comments that the planning board had discussed during the previous hearing. And there was concern that they hadn't approved them, that the applicant had the conditions, but they weren't approved. That's what I'm saying.
Okay, are there other comments or thoughts on that from the board? Abby?
I do think it's important to document the fact that that this was shared with the applicant before it was shared with the planning board, and that that is, I don't know if that's officially protocol or if that was a break in protocol, but I think that that's something that we do need to clarify.
Matt, did you go back to the recording and listen to it?
I did, yeah.
Was that actually discussed in the recording?
Well, I mean, I'm kind of confused because I went back to the last meeting recording to get that, and kind of what you just commented didn't really seem what you were asking for at the last meeting, but I can go back and take another look.
If there's someone who's not speaking who could go on mute, because there's a little bit of background noise. Nathan, did you have a comment?
No, I don't think I do at this point. I'm just trying to understand why other members think it's important that that particular sort of tidbit is inside of the meeting minutes.
can I say?
Lisa?
I do think it's really important. It was significant about the timing of things. The timing of things. The board, and I remember the board members were concerned. Several spoke up and were concerned. They were trying to clarify first. They were asking about the conditions or what the conditions were and whether, and they pointed out they hadn't approved them. And yet the applicant, but the applicant was sent them. The applicant had them. And they were concerned they didn't approve them and they hadn't seen what they were to approve them. And then there was conversation about, they didn't use the term boilerplate, but the idea that there's a certain set of basic conditions that the planner will generally draft to start with. But people had noted that the concerns that the planning board had discussed throughout the hearing were not reflected in those basic boilerplate conditions. So I think it's important for the timing of it that during that meeting, the planning board had not approved those conditions, but the applicant had been sent them.
Right. Hence it was a draft. We got to start somewhere. So we have to start by, we put together a draft decision and we send it out to the board and the board discusses at the meeting, but it's a public document.
Yeah, so Chris, I'm sorry to cut you off, but we're not discussing the actual procedure here. We're discussing the meeting minutes. And what I'm reading in that paragraph, I think actually expresses what I recall that this was brought up as a concern, that there was a response from Chris about how he approaches this. I think, if you could go back, Matt, and look at the recording again to see if there is more detail that was in that discussion that should be flushed out. Because if you weren't clear on what you were looking for, then let's have you do that and table these for now.
Okay.
Abby, do you have a comment on the content of the minutes? I'm not accepting comments at this time about the procedure for this.
I do.
Okay.
There was a question raised about wanting to clarify what the procedure is
A question raised where? In the minutes?
in the meeting.
Okay, so Matt's going to go back and look for that.
Okay.
Lisa, do you have a question?
No, but I just want to point out that what it says in that paragraph there is that a member of the public asked a procedural question about the proposed conditions. What
Right.
it doesn't say is the fact that the planning board members had not approved the conditions. What's not there is the actual fact that came out in the discussion that the planning board members had not. The answer to the question, the planning board members had not approved the conditions. And the applicant had the conditions and the planning board hadn't approved it. So I think
Okay.
leaving that part out is wrong, but I hear you're going to have Matt go back to look at it. But I think
Yes.
it'd be wrong to leave out that important fact.
As long as it was said, and that's what I want to make sure that Matt says. It could have been implied, but what I want to make sure that Matt sees is whether or not it was actually said. Because I think that's important. I'm not doubting that it was said, but I want him to double check. Any other comments on this before we move on to the next set of minutes? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move on to the next set of minutes, which is for May 27th, 2026. Lisa?
I actually had a couple of typos in there.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you have other comments?
I think one. I
Okay.
have like four typos, four word issues.
Okay. Did you send those to Matt and Chris when you saw them? 'Cause
I
I
did,
think in the future, maybe we can have folks send their questions and things they want Matt and Chris to follow up on, or typos ahead of time so they can correct them, so that we don't have to spend time correcting them in the meeting. Would folks be open to that approach?
I think that I did. Did I, Matt?
I don't have any emails from that. But if you could do me a favor and just send me that, it's a lot easier for me to, get something in writing than, checking my notes and then rewatching the meeting to try to figure out what was said exactly.
I have just one bit of substantial comment though, then.
Okay.
Okay.
What paragraph? Page 2, at the bottom of page 2, it says Riley asked members to send any questions they would like forwarded to town council to her and Kleeman. But specifically, there was the issue that someone was going to ask the town council to determine whether the planning board has any contractual obligations to MAPC for phase 2 of the master plan. That was one of the things that that I think the chair was going to ask of the town council.
Okay, and are you asking if that you want that to be reflected in the minutes?
Right,
Specifically?
because it
Okay.
was discussed in the minute
That's
it was
fine.
there.
We can add that in. I agree with that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Abby?
I agree that if there are spelling or word or formatting errors, they should be addressed before we all meet. But I do think it's important that the fact that happened be recorded, because a frequent request of the board has been that these items are proofread before they are sent to us, so that by the time we receive them, we don't have to spend any time correcting them. And it would be nice for that to eventually happen. And the fact that it continues to happen, I think, is important to just get on the record.
Okay, so why don't we table this set of minutes until next time? We've approved one set. Any other comments on minutes before we move on to the board reorganization? Okay, hearing none. Move on to the reorganization. So under reorganization, I wanted to kind of touch briefly with everybody on the agreement of sort of the overall responsibilities of each role. And then what we'll do is I will accept nominations. I will go in the order of chair, vice chair, and clerk. So we'll get nominations on the floor for each. I don't think there needs to be a second. There's just a nomination will be fine. And then we'll go through and we'll vote for each. And then we will talk about the appointment of the committee and subcommittee designees. So for the responsibilities of each role, so the roles that we have are chair, vice chair, and clerk. The chair is pretty much responsible for setting the agenda, for keeping the meeting, running the meeting, facilitating the meeting, being in charge of, figuring out, keeping the meeting on track and making sure that we are staying to the agenda, and that we are staying within the boundaries of the agenda. There might be other circumstances where the chair needs to head down to town hall and sign something. Sometimes the chair represents the planning board with the planning board's permission at certain meetings. There's a meeting of chairs and vice chairs that Erwin had organized last year, that sometimes the chair and vice chair would go to. The vice chair generally is supporting the chair. It fills in for the chair if the chair is not available. and the clerk has traditionally not been the most robust role, at least in terms of, this board, but, I think we can do more to, we can assign the clerk more responsibilities if we'd like around kind of keeping the minutes, making sure the minutes are getting approved, making sure the minutes are accurate. So I wanted to just pause and see, those are sort of the summary of the responsibilities that you would find in Robert's rules, that are generally kind of used across the boards and in the town. Nathan, you've been chair and vice chair in the past, and Abby's been clerk. I've been clerk and chair and vice chair. Do either of you, Nathan, do you have anything you want to add in terms of roles or responsibilities that I might have missed?
I think that's pretty much it. I think, that I think a huge role of the chair and sometimes the vice chair is that there's still a lot happening in town, and not all the members can keep up the speed. Maybe not up to speed. I shouldn't say that. That's not that probably the right word, but passing, it's helping to communicate beyond, our board meetings, sort of being someone who can say, oh yeah, the board would really be interested in that. We should make sure it gets on an agenda, and bringing information back to board members. It's the only thing I'd add.
Abby, anything you'd want to add from the clerk perspective?
No. I can think of additional functions that it would be helpful for a clerk to be able to do, but I don't know if they need to be codified, if we want to have that discussion. But and I think all board members should be out there and bringing information back to the board, in addition to the chair and the vice chair.
Sure. Okay, are we comfortable with sort of those general Robert's rules definitions for now, at least? We can always take up as part of our goals, a deeper look into how we might want to codify things, but okay. Hearing no concerns, I will open the floor for nominations for chair.
I nominate Megan.
Okay. Nathan has nominated Riley. Riley accepts. Lisa.
I nominate Shandell.
Shandell, you have been nominated for chair. Do you accept?
Do it.
Oh, Shandell. Oh,
I
Lisa?
nominate Abby.
Abby, do you accept?
I will accept.
Okay. We have nominations for Riley and for Kleeman. Any other nominations for chair at this point? Okay, move on to nominations for vice chair.
I nominate Abby.
Okay, we have a nomination for Kleeman. Abby, do you accept?
Yes.
Okay.
I nominate Shandell.
Nathan nominates Shandell. Shandell, do you accept?
No.
This one I thought just might.
I would like to nominate Nathan. Nathan, do you accept?
I respectfully decline. I look forward to contributing the best I can in many ways, but I do believe in the rotation of leadership in this committee and not permanent chairs or vice chairs.
Okay. All right. Any other nominations for vice chair? Okay. We'll move on to clerk. Any nominations for clerk? Lisa?
I nominate myself.
Okay. Nomination for French by French. Abby?
I was actually going to nominate Lisa.
Okay. Any other nominations for clerk?
I nominate Abby. She's detail oriented.
Abby, do you?
Um, I respectfully decline.
Okay. All right, so for the office of chair, we have nomination for Riley, a nomination for Kleeman. For vice chair, we have a nomination for Kleeman, and we have for clerk a nomination for French.
Yes, go outside.
Why don't we go ahead and start with the, maybe we can just start with the vote for clerk since we have one candidate. And then maybe we'll go to chair and then vice chair. Unless, Abby, do you still accept both nominations at this time? Okay. All right.
What's this?
Okay. All in favor of electing Lisa French for clerk of the planning board. I will take a roll call. Abby,
Aye.
Lisa,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Shandell,
Aye.
Nathan,
Resoundingly, aye.
and Riley, aye. It's unanimous. Congratulations, Lisa. You are our clerk.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right. We will go to chair. We have a nomination for Riley and a nomination for Kleeman. So how we will proceed is we will start with, I will do a roll call for the first nominee, and then I will do a roll call for the second nominee. So you will need to vote no if you are voting for the other person, I believe. I think that's how this will work. Okay, so all in favor of electing Megan Riley as chair of the planning board, I will start with Abby Kleeman.
No.
Okay. Lisa?
No.
Okay. Nancy?
This is for Abby for being chair.
No, this is for Megan for being chair.
Megan,
The next vote would be if you want Abby
Oh.
for chair, you would need to vote no on me.
Then I'd say yes. I'd like Riley to be the chair.
Nathan?
Aye. Yes.
Shondell?
Yes.
And I will vote for myself, yes. All right, so that's 2 noes and 4 yeses. So I think that does that.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Abby. And Abby, I believe you are our vice chair, given there are no other candidates, but let's go through the vote just in case. All right, if for chair, we should do a roll call for Abby as well. So Abby,
Can
for chair,
I withdraw my application?
you
Or
may.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so now we are voting for vice chair for Abby. You are in favor of Abby Kleeman being the vice chair. Abby?
Aye.
Okay. Lisa?
Aye.
Okay. Nathan?
Aye.
Shandell?
Aye.
Nancy?
Aye.
And Riley, aye. It's unanimous. All right, so
Right.
continue on. Moving on to the appointment of committee, subcommittee designees. So our committees that we have, there was a list provided in the Dropbox. We'll pull that up. So we have, in terms of official committees that are, listed on the website, we have the Economic Development Committee, which I am I have been the rep for. I am happy to have someone else take a turn on that if they would like. So I'm just putting that out there. I will continue to serve if that's the board's pleasure, but I have been the rep there. The Capital Planning Committee, which we nominated Shandell for, and I think she was going to take some time to think about that. But that had been filled by Jean Paquin. The Affordable Housing Committee, which has been Nancy Boyce. The Community Preservation Committee, which has been Nathan. The Zoning Bylaw Review Committee, which has been Abby. And we have a new committee, which is the Waterfront Access Advisory Committee. And there was some information provided in support of that committee in terms of the description. So I'll read that aloud. The planning board members received it in the Dropbox. Hull Waterfront Access Advisory Committee. Our membership would continue to consist of one member of the Select Board, one member of the Conservation Commission, one member of the Parks and Recreation Commission, one member of the Planning Board, one member of the Beach Management Advisory Committee, one member of the Weir River Estuary Park Committee, one member of the Council on Aging, and 2 at-large members of the general public. The members of the town boards would be appointed by their respective boards or committees. The at-large members would be appointed by the Select Board. Appointments will be for a term of 2 years. The charge of the Hull Waterfront Access Advisory Committee is as follows. The HWAAC shall provide advice and assistance to the Select Board in achieving implementation of the goals and recommendations of the working group's final report. The committee shall perform such other functions as may be requested by the Select Board in furtherance of those goals. The HWAAC may also, at its initiative, develop action plans, recommendations, and proposals for presentation to and approval by the Select Board, also including work on the Waterfront Access Stencil project, advocating for waterfront improvements, and any other projects germane to waterfront access. So with that, we have these committees that we need to either reappoint as our designee from the planning board, someone who has already been doing it if they are interested, or we need to appoint a new person. Is there Nathan?
Zoning Bylaw Review Committee. Lisa, do you have interest there? I'm asking because I think you've spending a lot of time drafting zoning and a lot of that was high quality work as well as your presentations, and I think it might be a time for someone to give some energy back over there.
Hello. Did I not give energy?
Abby, I did not recognize
I was just asking,
so
but
you can't.
I
Sorry.
aside from
Let's-
that,
Yeah,
did I not
but
remember correctly?
please, yes, and I also raise your hand. Let's maybe before we go, is there anyone who is currently on one of these committees who would like to stay on their committee?
I would like to stay on the Affordable Housing Committee.
Okay. And Abby, I also, like Nathan, did think that you had expressed that you wanted to step back from the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee. Is that no longer the case?
The other interest that I had is going to be filled, so I would like to stay on.
Okay. So
If the board at the board's pleasure.
yeah, so maybe why don't we go kind of one by one, and we can accept nominations and vote if there are competing interests. Is everyone comfortable with that approach? Lisa?
Or just an idea, you could just ask if anybody is interested in any of the other openings.
We could do that.
You could do that and see, if there's a couple people on one, then deal with that. You
Yep.
could see what people, if they want to do a certain thing.
Yeah, that's a good idea. We don't necessarily need to vote on each one. Why don't we start with the Economic Development Committee? So I have currently been I have been the representative there. I am okay if someone else is interested there. It's a good committee. Any interest?
Yes, I have interest.
Okay. All right. So, I am willing to, is there any other interest aside from Shandell?
I'm interested, but I'd rather just be kept in the loop and maybe show up as an alternate and let me know when there's meetings and I can go poke at things if you'd like me to.
Okay. I am okay with stepping back from the Economic Development Committee. So, there any concern from the board of having Shandell be our Economic Development Committee representative? All right, hearing none. Congratulations, Shandell. You will do a fantastic job.
Thank you.
All right, Capital Planning Committee. So that is an open space. Shandell, you had previously been nominated. I think you had wanted to think about it. Are you still interested there?
No.
No. Okay. Are there other interests for capital planning? Abby is interested. Anyone else?
And may I be recognized?
Yes, you may.
If I am appointed, then I would drop off the zoning bylaw committee unless Lisa wasn't interested, unless there was no additional interest.
Okay. There is no other interest in the capital planning committee, then any concern with having Abby represent the board on the capital planning committee? Hearing none. Abby, congratulations.
Thank you.
All right. Affordable Housing Committee. Nancy, you expressed that you would like to continue there.
Yes.
Are there anyone else interested? Okay, hearing no other interest. Any concerns with continuing with Nancy on the Affordable Housing Committee? Splendid. Nancy, congratulations. Community Preservation Committee. Nathan, you had been the representative there. Would you like to continue?
If the board's will, I'd be happy to.
Okay. Any other interests in that committee? Okay. Any concerns with having Nathan continue as the representative for community preservation?
Yes.
Wonderful. Excellent. Zoning Bylaw Review Committee. We have a nomination for Lisa. Abby, I think you've said you are willing to step back.
Especially because they're at the same time.
Okay, wonderful. Anyone else interested in the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee? Okay, any concerns with Lisa joining the Zoning Bylaw Review Committee?
I don't want to.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry,
I didn't
Lisa.
say, I shook my head no. I didn't say
Oh,
yes.
I'm sorry. Okay.
I did not.
That got lost in.
Yeah, that was missed. I didn't
Okay.
speak up.
Yeah.
I appreciate the comments, but I know that Abby is very good at that. And I don't have a particular interest. I have another interest. And I think as clerk too. I mean, I'd rather not say that way.
Okay. So I know Abby is, if the capital plan committee and zoning bylaw committee are meeting at the same time, she won't be able to serve on that. So do we have anyone else who is interested in the zoning bylaw committee? Or Abby, do you want to try and make both?
I would prefer if someone else were excited to step up. If not, I'm happy to do my best to attend both. They don't usually 100% overlap. There's usually a little bit of, I mean, enough overlap that there's overlap, but in the time. And we could also see what happens when our new member joins, but hopefully someone here is interested.
Okay. Is any, I'm not hearing any interest at this time. So we might need to see if maybe we can have you try and fill that until we have a new member that's able to join.
Okay.
The Waterfront Access Advisory Committee. Do we have any interest in that? Lisa?
Me, I am.
Okay. I was also interested in that, but I am okay with Lisa going forward with that. I think that is a good place for Lisa. So, anyone else aside from Lisa? Any concerns with Lisa? And you do accept, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay. Any concerns with Lisa being our representative on the Waterfront Access Advisory Committee? Okay. All right. I think that settles that for now. Any other comments on that topic before we move on from the reorganization discussion? Hearing none. I'm wondering if perhaps since we have guests here for the Paragon Dunes modification discussion, if the board would be amenable to us taking that topic first before the master plan discussion.
That works for me.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none, then we will move on to the Paragon Dunes modification discussion. So the applicant is requesting a minor modification to enlarge stormwater infiltration system P3B in order to provide infiltration for approximately 5,350 square feet of roof area that currently discharges to infiltration system P3A. This is proposed due to a conflict with building plumbing routing. Infiltration system P3A will remain as designed, providing excess storage capacity. This would have no impact on the appearance of the building. Do we have someone from the applicant who is here to speak on this matter to the board?
Yes, Madam Chair, congratulations. Carlos Sculte with Civil Environmental Consultants here, representing the project team. With me, I have Lou Mascolo from Delbrook, the contractor, Al Gogolin from the ownership team, and Adam's joining us as well, if needed. But hopefully this is pretty straightforward. I could walk you through the proposed change, the reason for the change, and then the kind of where we are, and happy to answer any questions the board may have, if that's okay.
Yes, I think that would be,
Okay.
that would be great. Thank you. Please go
I
ahead.
will share my screen if I have the permissions. Oh, it's not turned on. I could send a
Hold on,
request.
let me
I don't know.
I'll
if
get
it
it to you.
moves through. Okay,
Got it?
thank you very much. I will share my screen here. Can everybody see this?
Yep.
Yes.
So over the course of construction, it's typical that you're installing utilities and uncovering just minor changes along the way in terms of, moving a couple pipes here and there, a foot here, a foot there. One of the issues that we ran into working with the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing engineer for the interior building plumbing was at the tip of the building here, where the residential lobby is located, which is the middle finger on the three fingers that project towards Nantasket Avenue. There was a challenge getting the plumbing from the roof drain that goes underground to go past this water room area and then out to the right where it was originally planned for as part of the permitting documents. So what we were looking at for an alternate routing was, instead of taking this roof area and sending it through the building and out to the south, was potentially sending it to this chamber system here that we have between the two buildings. So what was proposed originally was this rectangle here. The additional chambers that we're proposing to add are the areas in yellow that I've highlighted here. So basically the change consists of a new roof drain pipe, which is an underground pipe connecting it to the water quality unit, and then adding additional subsurface storage for stormwater in the chambers beneath the plaza area that we have here. This area used to run to the south. So for a context, the original project design included this area here,
Oh, Carlos, I think you might have.
PR was originally PR chamber system. Can you still hear me and see the screen okay?
We can hear you now. You cut out for a moment.
Okay. Hopefully you didn't miss too much, but certainly open to questions at the end. From a very high level, it's this area here, this 3B1 area, was originally designed to send the stormwater to this large system here, just south of the building. We are now sending this area to this system here located in the courtyard. We have upsized this chamber system to accommodate all of the stormwater runoff from this roof area. It stores and infiltrates 100% of all of the storm events up to and including the 100-year storm event. So it's all contained underground, and it recharges there in that location. We are not proposing to reduce or otherwise change this system here. So effectively, this is all new additional stormwater detention infiltration. This system, as a result of sending this area here, is now oversized. So it provides additional capacity, more so than what was originally designed. It meets all of the original design metrics in terms of peak rates of runoff, water quality storage, water quality treatment, and overall recharge for the development. All of the proposed improvements or these modifications are all underground. We did send this to Mr. Chesia for review as third-party peer review at the request of Mr. Deloria. Mr. Chesia did issue a letter, which I believe you should have in your files, which identified that he didn't have any issues with what was being proposed, as that it met the original intent of the project. So with that, hopefully it's pretty straightforward. It's really just a minor modification in response to field changes, as we're crossing the T's and dotting the I's on the coordination with the various consultants as the project is ongoing. So with that, I open it to any questions, should you have any. But hopefully you agree it's a minor modification and we can proceed with this change.
Okay, thank you. I will take any questions that board members have at this time for Mr. Schulte. Okay, I'm not hearing any questions. I think the decision before us is whether or not this is a minor modification, in which case it can move forward with it. Is that accurate, Chris, based on our?
Right. First, you typically vote if it's a minor modification, and then you'd vote on the actual change itself.
Okay, so we will first take a vote about whether or not we consider it to be a minor modification, and then we will vote on allowing them to move forward with the change. Abby.
Can someone give an explanation as to the difference between a minor and a major modification and where that line is?
It's always really been something that's been determined by the board. I mean, the difference in the process is that a major modification would go through another public hearing process. So it's typically, if it was something major, it'd be like a substantial change to the appearance of the building or substantial change to the way the public would interact with the building. So yeah, this project, this proposed change is, it's all underground. Nobody's going to see anything. It's not really going to affect how the public is going to, interact with it.
So it would just be a matter of a visual change?
A major, you mean? A major modification?
Well, are you saying that it cannot be a major modification unless it involves a significant visual change?
No, it's the board determination, really. There's no specific rules, we never actually defined specific parameters to what counts for a minor versus a major. But, I was saying typically, if the board was gonna, and in the past, vote for a major modification, it was because of those kind of things, like a substantial change in the appearance, or if it was going to be a significant change to the site plan where the parking was going to be, or how the public was going to interact at the site.
So to what Chris said, if we decide that this is a major modification, that would require a public hearing. And I guess the question would be, is there enough that's changing here that we feel that there needs to be public input, a public hearing around that?
Thank you.
Nathan?
I move the board find this is a minor modification.
Okay, we have a motion from Nathan. Do I have a second?
A second.
A second from Lisa French. Any discussion on the motion to find that this is the requested modification is minor? Okay, hearing none, I will take a roll call. We are voting on finding this modification to be minor. The motion is from Peyton. The second is from French. I will do a roll call vote. I will start with Shandell.
Yes.
Nathan?
Aye.
Abby?
Aye.
Lisa?
Aye.
Nancy? You're on mute.
Yeah. I,
And Riley, aye. So the motion passes. The board finds that this is a minor modification. So the board will now move on to vote on allowing the applicant to move forward with the minor modification, as it does not require a public hearing, as it is a minor modification. Do I have a motion?
I move the modification question forward.
I'm sorry?
I move the modification question forward.
Okay.
and I second it.
We have
Nancy.
a motion from Shandell. So Shandell, the motion is to basically approve the minor modification.
Right.
Okay. And a second from Boyce on the motion to approve the minor modification. Okay. Any discussion from the board?
I'd only ask that Chelsea's response letter somehow be referenced in the record here.
Sure. Do you want me to read it aloud into the record?
No, I think we can. I've read it. Everyone, I think, has read it.
Okay.
We can stipulate that it be included.
In the minutes as a appendix, is that
Perfect.
okay? Wonderful. Is everyone comfortable with that?
Yes.
Yes. Well, excellent. All right. Any other discussion? Seeing none on the motion to approve the minor modification, which was a motion by Schulte with a second by Boyce. I will start with Lisa French.
Aye.
Nancy?
I,
Shandell?
Aye.
Nathan?
Aye.
Abby?
Aye.
And Riley, aye. It's unanimous. The motion passes to approve the minor modification.
Thank you very much for your time. Have a great evening, and thank you for also moving us up a little on the agenda. We appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming in.
Good night. Thank you very
Good night.
much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you. Okay. Moving right along on our agenda. Why don't we switch gears over to the master plan discussion? So we will start with, I'm just bringing my agenda back up. Why don't we start, maybe Abby, should we just start with a quick update on the discussion that we did have with town council about
Sure.
executive session? So while I didn't receive any questions from any board members. Abby and I did have a chance to meet with town council about sort of the options for moving forward. We had heard from Shandell that evening that there is a clause, I believe, in the master plan contract that allows us to break the contract with MAPC. So we discussed kind of what the board's options are, looking at other agencies. And I think we do have that option. And we would, probably want to bring that forward to the town manager as kind of the signing body, for the town, but we do have that option. So Abby, do you want to add to that?
Sure. I just wanted to clarify that it wouldn't be breaking the contract, that we've actually fulfilled the terms of the contract that was in existence, and there was no obligation to do
further.
exactly.
Thank you.
And
Thank
I
you
was
for clarification. I said thank you for that clarification. That is an important clarification. Continue.
I do have the names of a number of entities that, with the board's permission, I'd love to have preliminary conversations and then maybe set up some time for them to just do a capabilities presentation to board members, or perhaps record a capabilities presentation that folks can watch at their leisure, depending upon, I recognize that would take a good amount of time, or I can narrow it down or use some other sort of formula. But there are other entities out there that are very well regarded and do provide another option.
And while we do not actually sign the contract, I mean, this is sort of similar to how things work in my industry as well. There's someone who actually signs the document. It would be in everyone's best interest for us to be bought in on whoever we're making a contract for, because we're the ones who accept the master plan. Was there anything else, Abby, that I missed in terms of our conversation with Brian? It wasn't very lengthy, but that was sort of what we were tasked with figuring out, is just sort of what are our options there in terms of a path forward.
Yes, and it is not at all unusual for a town to switch providers between phase 1 and phase 2. So it's not a rare thing to have happen. I just wanted to share that.
Now I'll go to Nathan and then Lisa.
Was the town able to give you some guidance on procurement mechanisms and what we would have to do to actually get to a contract phase?
We didn't go there because we wanted to loop back with the board first. So no conversations have happened yet.
And I think, go ahead. I
Yeah,
was going to say what we could do is we could designate someone to have those discussions with the town manager. If kind of on the board's behalf, to kind of figure out that path forward. Abby, if I recall, right? Just keep me. That was your recollection as well.
yes. I mean, I'm happy to do it since I've been the point person for better or for worse with MAPC, and also have had conversations with other folks involved in Citizen Planner Training Collaborative, and just getting more information about how it typically works from a planning board decision making process. But there have been no conversations with the town or with other providers. So I just wanted to clarify that.
Lisa?
Well,
Oh, sorry, Nathan, did you want to respond to that? I'm sorry, Lisa.
If you don't mind, yeah, Lisa, I just think it's important to do that sooner rather than later, understand what the procurement process will be, because state and municipal procurement processes follow really strict guidelines on, who can be involved, what is fair competition in the space, etc., and what is not. So if we're going to get to a point where we're inviting vendors like Beta or other into the room, we would want to have we would want to understand the process, that like the full layout of the process, and then also I think it'll help us to understand the timeline, so we can have a better conversation with members of the public and members of our master planning steering committee, sooner rather than later, to give them a more solid update that doesn't sound so loose. That's all.
I agree.
Lisa?
I really appreciate it, Abby, that you've already started to look into that, and really appreciate, Nathan, that advice. My understanding that the town manager is the chief procurement officer. Yes, she's the one that actually makes the arrangements, but it's very important. I feel that our board actually identify who it is we feel would do the best job for us. Not and determining the scope and communicating with whoever it is about exactly what we want from them. I think the board as a whole, not an individual, but the board as a whole should be very much involved in that process. So we don't find ourselves, in a similar situation. I know we won't. I know we won't find ourselves in that situation again. But I think I just want to emphasize, I'm looking forward to actually the board as a whole, having input in this type of decision. It makes me feel, a little more optimistic about this going forward. We won't be alone, and we all together will decide, what we think is going to help us the most.
Thank you, Lisa. Abby?
Okay. I actually have a question for Chris, Madam Chair. Was there any sort of a bid process for phase one?
No, we
Yes.
didn't. With MAPC, you don't have to go out to bid. That was one of the main reasons. Not one of the main reasons, besides the fact that they're, our planning agency, regional planning agency. But with them, you don't have to go out to bid. So there's like pure state contract or state bid list. You can go direct to them. So I think with any kind of other any other consultant, we'd have to do like an RFQ. And so you can pull out a request for qualifications, and then you can put like a scoring matrix on there, and select which providers you think would do the best job, and then see what the actual price would be.
Okay.
After that.
So we didn't get prices from any other providers at all, even as reference points?
No, No, we didn't.
Okay, and is it possible to obtain a copy of the Magic special list that includes the state contractors? I'm just curious to see whether there is any other provider of these services that would be on there. And then and I know that there are plenty of towns who do go the RFQ route, so it's obviously not impossible. And I agree that the full board should be involved in decision-making process. I also know that we will have to figure out how to do that time-wise, because we don't have, I don't think the right way to do it would be to every 2 weeks have a different a different capabilities presentation in a meeting. We just have to figure out what the best way is to get all the information that we need in an efficient way so that we can make a decision.
Lisa.
I'm just wondering, are we going to have an issue? The thing about MAPC was they provided some funding with this, so are we, if we start with an RFQ with whatever this list is, are we going to run into a roadblock? Are we going to have a problem with anybody saying no or setting a limit on how much? We should certainly find that out sooner rather than later, right?
I agree. I think what I'd like to do is have us hear from the master plan subcommittee about the phase 1 report markups that they're delivering back to us. And then upon hearing from them and discussing that, let's double back then to how we want to proceed on and at least identify 1 or 2 next steps on this that we can take either as a board or as a subcommittee. Does that sound amenable to folks? All right, I will then hand things over to Abby and Shandell, who are representing the subcommittee. Cindy Borges was also on the subcommittee. Nathan, you have a question?
I guess I have a question, but I have a suggestion. First, the super secret list of state contracts, I think you can just go on Combis and you can literally see that. It's a public available website, and you can search under those profiles and you'll be able to figure out who can provide master planning services.
What was the
It's on mass.gov under OSD, Office of, I don't forget what OSD is because I speak acronym now. But but it's called Combis. You click in, and then you'll be able to see like the full list of all the people with state contracts, and the services they're allowed to provide under those contracts. And I think you can even see the rates. I do think it's going to be really important that this board and perhaps the master planning steering committee have a real clear understanding of what it wants before we even go down to the road of hearing people's qualifications and all of that. I think having a clear understanding of what we think success looks like, what we think a quality process looks like, and what we think the documents we want out of this are, it is kind of the only way to avoid another step, another sort of phase 1 for me, right? I think a little bit of lack of clarity there and some changing perspectives and some changing instructions led a lot to that. So I'm not sure how we get there other than, more conversations, really understanding, what, and some of that maybe understanding what's out there a little bit more and saying, oh yeah, that Cohasset plan's perfect. I want something that looks like that. It's not, don't do that. But, I do think we have to find a way to get there before we get to the point of let's contracting and spending good money for something that but we don't know the outcome. That's
Agree. Thank you, Nathan. Okay, let's hear from our subcommittee and then we'll come back to what are our next steps, which may, I agree with Nathan, involved. How do we get that clear vision?
I think part of that would also be through the capabilities presentation process, where we could hear what some of the providers think would potentially be a good idea to do. But yes, and there might be someone who will facilitate, help us facilitate the process for us, come in and help us think through it.
Okay, so your presentation, your report back.
So everyone should have received an email from me this afternoon with a companion document that goes along with the master plan draft. And that document, and I apologize for not getting it out sooner. Matt, do you happen to have that handy? I'm not necessarily suggesting that we put it up on the screen, but
sorry, I don't.
Okay.
Or I see it's in my email, but I have
No
problems
worries.
with my email on my
Do you
personal
want me to,
computer.
because I have it up, I think I can share my screen if you want to look at it.
Unless folks are able to look at it on their laptops, but basically what
Okay, do you want me to share it? Or, okay, yes.
Yeah. Chris, can you? Oh, there we go.
I think I'm sharing, right? Is everyone seeing my screen?
Yep.
Is it happening? Okay.
It is up.
All right.
Yep. So basically what we did is we went through and created sections for comments, and many of them followed the existing conditions and the sections like climate, land use and zoning, housing and affordability, et cetera, et cetera. Not all of the sections were dissected because some of them just really didn't have much in there, not through the fault of MAPC, but obviously work needs to be done. We also had a section on process and scope, as well as a section that just covered spelling errors and errors of footnotes that don't lead anywhere, and numbering, and also the very obvious differences in voices between the different sections, like it was kind of patchworked together. So I don't know how in depth you want to get with this. It's pretty detailed, and I don't know that we're going to be able to go through all of it line by line. So, Madam Chair, how deep a dive would you like, and how much time should we take?
I mean, I guess that's sort of the pleasure of the board. Like, what is our like, do we expect MAPC to take any action based on this document, or is this really just more for our highlighting for the rest of the board, sort of the concerns that folks have?
Well, I believe that MAPC does not plan to make any changes or corrections. However, my understanding is that it is incumbent upon the consultant to provide an accurate document that at least has been proofread. And so that is a follow-up discussion that we should have with MAPC. That conversation hasn't happened because we hadn't gone through this yet. And I'm sure that all of you are going to have additions to this list.
And Abby, are you still meeting with MAPC on a regular basis?
No, that stopped months ago because they really didn't want to talk about phase one anymore. And any conversations that we would have had with them would have been billed. So everything was put on hold.
Okay. Lisa, you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, I'm wondering, could you go back to, well, in this center column here, a lot of these start with the review states. What is the review that you're referring to? Was that one of the three of you had that opinion, or what was the review?
Yes, basically we each took sections and did an analysis of the sections, and I fed everything into Chat GPT so that it could be organized in a uniform way. So that this was all the analysis and the writing was really done by humans, but in terms of just putting it into chart form.
So we can ignore the review states. We can ignore that pretty much. And I'm wondering, it looks like it's not so. It's organized according to topics in the master plan, but I'm wondering if you happen to have it organized according to what the issues were, because you just now you said something like where there are grammatical problems or numbering issues, because I haven't gone through it yet. I got it later than you folks, so I've been going through it. Haven't got that far. But I do see lots of issues, and I hope we can make sure that we get them all, because we want an accurate document for ourselves. We want an accurate document. So if there was like a category of like grammatical errors, we could get a list of them and get them all in that box. If we had like numbering problems or the figures, like the figures are really screwed up. The numbering for the figures. So if we had a category and we could like look at the list of issues within each of those types of problems. Do you have it that way? Oh, okay.
Yep. Towards the end is kind of uniform issues with supporting document, a collection of issues regarding supporting documentation, and then there's 3 pages of detailed out formatting errors.
Wow.
Wow. Other questions or comments for the subcommittee? I know folks received this just less than an hour before the meeting, so I'm sure folks will want time to read through it. Nathan.
Yeah, so first, it looks like this was a lot of work, so thank you for doing that work. I think that's going to be really helpful. And then, for me, I'm gonna have to literally print this out and take the actual MAPC document in one day, or put it on both my screens if I'm doing it in my office. And that's going to take me some time to kind of get through and digest, and then try to elevate to like bigger themes that I think address the bigger issue of how do we make a better process. So I just don't think that's somewhere I can get tonight. Plus, I can barely read this. My eyes are so tired. But
And
yeah, so I would just say I'm going to need some time with this one. That's all. But thank you for the effort.
and I did try to break it down by request clarification or revision, and I know we talked about a marked up document, but there was so much that it would have been impossible unless the entire document was deconstructed and then the notes were put next to everything. So I know that this is less than ideal, but couldn't figure out a better way.
Lisa?
I'm wondering, I don't know myself, but I'm wondering if there is a way to add to this type of document here, a link that would take us directly to the item in the math, in the phase 2 or phase 1 document. You know what I mean? Because if I go through and I think about if I note the problems that I've run into, I have to read this really carefully to see if any of those are already covered, and worded differently. To find the issue that I find, I will have to read all of these in a category. If there was like a link that said, page 2, second paragraph, page 8, third paragraph, a link that I could go to, then I would immediately know if that was the same problem that I noted, and I don't have to mention it. Is there any way to have AI help you do that?
I don't know.
I see you have some page numbers over there on the left. But if there was a page number on all of them, then more quickly, I think all of us could see if we've got all of the issues that we ran across, that they're all in this document.
Shandell, how do you feel about going back through your sections and doing that? I mean, I think it's going to take a long time, and I think
Yeah, not great.
each section is small enough that if everything is broken down in chunks, I think can compare, but
Yeah. And I think I will say, we kind of gave this to a small subcommittee to have them sort of do that work. So I'm not sure, that I just would hate for the rest of the board to feel like they also have to do that work that the subcommittee has already done. But I think, yeah, I'm not sure that it's fair to ask folks to go back and add those in, especially since they're down a member. But I hear your point, Lisa, and maybe there is something with AI and Copilot that could match it up fairly quickly. But if I come across that in my workday, I'll certainly send something over to folks as I'm playing around with it more and more. So I've heard a couple of things. One, I think, just the resounding, like we want some more time. Folks want some time to read through this, digest it. Maybe, there, is going to be some looking back at the report and just, for everyone's own comprehension. So certainly let's give some folks some time to do that. But kind of then coming back to our discussion on next steps, because I do, this will kind of feed into our next agenda topic around goals, is keeping this moving. And so do we have sort of any immediate actions that we want to task a subcommittee with, or a representative with, or the board with, between now and our next meeting, which is July 8th, which Abby, I'm hoping you'll be around and can chair, because I will be on vacation.
I never go anywhere, so
Well, thank you. I get old reliable here. I appreciate it. We can certainly talk about the agenda, beforehand. I'll help with that. But sorry, go ahead. No, go ahead, Abby.
one of the things that I'd be curious about is if any folks think that there are large gaping holes in information or challenges or issues that should have been part of phase one that weren't addressed, that should be addressed. Just in terms of existing conditions that should be factored in. I personally have other thoughts about overall phase one. If you are willing to indulge me for 2 more minutes. A lot of the underlying assumptions were not correct. And a lot of the information was based upon information that was pretty old. So for instance, land use and zoning, one of the 3 major sources was from 2004. We're talking decades, plural, old. And then there were a few cases where an underlying assumption or an underlying statement was incorrect. So for instance, there was a category for municipal land use, and what was included in there among town-owned property was property owned by the redevelopment authority. And technically that is not standard municipal land. So it can't be treated as standard municipal land. So all of the stuff relating to that is off, and there were many situations like that through here. There also wasn't addressed the feelings that came through from the citizens in the open house, really. Again, for instance, the zoning and land use chapter talks about there are only this many multifamily houses. There is only this much commercial. There is only, you can only, so it was basically written from a perspective of, MBTA community type towns are great, and anything that has an abundance of single family isn't. And to me, that didn't match up with their concerns, didn't match up with the wants of the citizens in terms of people who had given us the feedback. So right there seemed to be a pretty significant disconnect. It was almost as though it was being written with a really clear picture of what is right and what is wrong, but it didn't take into account what the people who lived here have told us that they want. So I just wanted to put that out there because I found it really challenging.
Okay, thank you, Abby. Lisa?
Yeah, one of the things that I noticed so far, I guess I'm about maybe a quarter of the way through, especially I went through all of the interviews. I read a lot about the interviews. I read MAPC's notes about the interviews with people. I don't understand why they didn't decide from the beginning. If I had some say when designing the scope, I would have said, of course you would communicate with each of the boards and the town committees. You would find out what their concerns were. They're dealing with particular aspects of the town. All of it is related to some part of the master plan. So why would you not meet with the beach management committee as not just one person from the committee, but you'd meet with the committee and find out what are the top issues, what are the challenges you've experienced in the last 5 years? What do you really think is needed to address these problems? I don't understand why as part of the master plan process, you wouldn't be interviewing the people on the boards and committees. I mean, they know best about what they've been working on. So I noticed that was a very big lack. And also, related to that, when I classified who they had interviewed, they really were very confused about who was actually an employee working for the town in a department and something that was a board or a committee. It's like they used the wrong language constantly. They said, here are the departments. And then they would have a couple of committees in there, not departments, committees, volunteers who are working on these issues. It seemed like the people who work for MAPC did not understand the difference. There seemed to be a lot of general confusion about it. So, I think one of the things that would be good is that we make sure that we do add that to this process at the beginning, that we actually do make sure that the boards are asked a number of important questions, the kinds of questions that individuals were asked, and not just rely on a single representative to speak for a group of people, but actually speak with the board, speak with the committee or the commission, and find out what they really have to say that relates to some aspect of our master plan.
Any other comments or thoughts? Okay. What would we like to, is the next step here for folks to digest what the subcommittee has provided with us and regroup at our next meeting on identifying some next steps, or are there some immediate next steps that we would like to action on and assign tonight? Okay, I'm gonna suggest that we let Abby go ahead.
No, please.
I wasn't seeing anything, but why don't I pause a little longer? Abby and then Nathan.
I think to whatever degree we're able to, as Nathan said, learn more about the procurement process, gain a better understanding of what the budget to do this is and what the possibilities are, although it may very well be difficult to do that until we have quotes and say, well, this is what we'd like. Because it seems as though there is potentially some flexibility somewhere. And I do know, I don't know if the community preservation funds could help to fund any part of this. I know other towns in Massachusetts have been able to use CPC funds for certain sections of the master plan or certain subsections. So I wanted to throw that out there. But I think getting a better understanding of how this is going to work once we figure out exactly what it is that we want.
Okay, Nathan?
Yeah, I agree with everything that's been said. I think it's going to be important, obviously, to understand procurement. I think it's important for us to take the work that our team members here have developed and digested, spend some time with it, understand what the deficiencies are, and what we agree are deficiencies in the current draft document, whatever we want to call it, for phase one. But I think it's going to be really important that we identify pretty quickly what we want to build off of. A lot of people did a lot of work. There's a whole steering committee. There's a lot of people who provided a lot of public input and feedback that is out there. I'm figuring out what we want to build from. We don't necessarily need to know where we want to go, but what we have that we think is solid and good and is a good base to start some next phase of the project. I think it's going to be important that we get there sooner rather than later, rather than everything sucks and this was terrible. But like that's just, I'm not interested in bringing that out into the world. You guys can do what you want, but I won't be with you on that conversation. Uh, and then yeah, we can certainly have a conversation with the Community Preservation X folks. I would just remind them that there's a cycle, and that cycle ends in town meeting voting on a on money that's for the next fiscal year. So the timeline might not add up completely, depending on how that's phased. And there are, of course, limitations. I believe that we've already funded open space planning really recently, waterfront planning really recently. I'm not sure that there'd be a lot of there's a lot more sections that we could put into a category that would be worthy. You know, that would be something you're interested in, right? We might be able to find some money for historic or something like that if there was such a request. But do you really need a significant section of historic right now? All right, that's all.
Thank you. Lisa?
Yeah, I know that people are gonna groan because when I think about it, I started collecting the plans, all the plans. I've already had a lot of the plans that the town has done over the years. A lot of them I have, and a lot of them they refer to in map, in the phase one document. I just really think that some group, more than one person, are going to really have to go through those because they are a mishmash. It's true that there are some good ideas in some of those old plans and studies. But then, like, a lot of them are outdated, but there are still maybe some good ideas to come from them. But it's like there are some that just really they're just so bogus, And I think we really have, if we want to consider any of them, we have to select from them, and there's no easy way to go about it except I think to really look through all of them and understand what they provide and what parts are worthwhile and whether or not any part is worthwhile in those. You know, I just don't know how to avoid that.
I'm sorry, Lisa, I'm just trying to understand, is that different from the exercise? I really am just trying to make sure I'm clear. Different from the exercise that Abby, Cindy, and Chandel just did.
Yeah. Yes, it's an extra project. It's an extra project. They cite the phase one document cites particular plans.
I see.
I just found one this morning. It's not on the town website. It's nowhere on the town website. And I happened to find out about it through another person in town who happened to know the person who created it, who was actually still a student. It's like, but MAPC quoted it and said the outcome in this brilliant plan and whatever, this brilliant study was like all praising it, like we did this great work, and it's like
So could we sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off, Lisa. Please continue. I'm sorry.
I know that they refer to decisions in plans. They say these goals that were set that were, or this set of guidelines that were presented in this, hazard mitigation plan, like these we should follow and blah, blah, blah. It's like we have to make sure that it's really true. That the plans were based on facts, that the plans are valid, that the data is still accurate enough to be relying on it, and whether or not those are a list of guidelines we should really follow. I don't think we should have something in a master plan document if it's not something that is really that we feel at this time, when we're making the master plan for the first time, we should decide if it's something that really does make sense. And it's going to be a tedious task because the plans are all over the place, and identifying who actually worked on them. In many, many cases, there were a handful of the same people that work for the town. you know, so anyways.
Do we want to propose a subcommittee to start that effort to, you know, to put some scope, you know, if that, it sounds like the effort you're asking for, Lisa, is a group, which I don't think it makes sense for it to be everyone on the planning board, but maybe identifying a small subcommittee to do that deeper dive into the plans that are cited in the phase 1 report. Is that an accurate summary of sort of what you're proposing?
Or you know, I don't know. It might even, what if we even hired somebody to they are such a mishmash, and it takes looking through them to even figure out like what was the date that they were created, who actually worked on it. When they say there was public input, was there actually, you know, it's a researching type of project. I'm wondering if there's somebody that even could be hired to track down, you know, the information about these plans so that we can look at it. I mean, I'm talking, it's really tedious. It's extremely tedious.
I just want to clarify, because we've talked a lot about budget, and hiring someone would require budget. We don't have a budget. We would have to somehow request those funds, and I think, you know, the first thing we probably want to figure out is there any, like, I think the appeal of MAPC was that, you know, there's grants involved that can help fund this. I don't think the town has sort of money that we're able to draw from to fund this. We'll probably have to apply for grants to continue to do this work. Are we all kind of agreed on that? I don't think there's a kitty somewhere out there that we can pull from, based on, you know, the budget that we went through a town meeting. So I just want to make sure that we're kind of thinking through, like, if we want to hire someone, do we need to apply for a grant to get that money, or do we need to kind of go to the town manager and figure out how we would get that money? I'm just putting that out there, not to put a damper on that, but okay. Abby and then Lisa.
I think we have to figure out just how valuable some of those old plans actually are, and how much it matters whether or not the information is included in this master plan. If they're multiple decades old and weren't necessarily formally approved or executed, then, and they've just been sitting on a shelf, it doesn't necessarily matter that they happened, because that was a snapshot in time, and Hull is very different now. So obviously some of them are going to be important, and they might be important from the perspective of, you know, gee, why does this thing, you know, happen in Hull, or why haven't we been able to do X, Y, Z? But I don't know that we need to track down every single one. Just because it's been referenced doesn't mean that we have to include that reference. It doesn't mean that we have to use the plan as information about existing conditions. And in terms of budget, I would imagine that maybe there are some undesignated funds that could be applied to this, because there is some discretionary funding that the town has, and they have already earmarked, I think, $90,000 for phase 2. And then we also can figure out just how creative we have to get. In addition to grants, there are very likely some other ways that we could get the support or the services to get this done. So we just have to be creative. And also, if it's a priority for the town, then it's a priority for the town. It would be great if we could have used MAPC for phase 2. It doesn't appear that that is a rational choice right now, unless things were to change dramatically.
Okay, Lisa?
Yeah, I feel a little bad that I was maybe exaggerating too much. And I agree with Abby, that we don't have to cite all of these. My concern when I saw them was, egads, what is that doing there? And why are they saying that? So, part of what we do is we don't have to include every single one that was referenced. But there are good things in some of those plans. There are good ideas. People did put some work into a lot of those things. They're not unimportant. And maybe I'm just exaggerating how overwhelming it feels, except it really seemed overwhelming when I looked through them all. But, maybe it's not that bad. So, maybe it's not, I'm not saying that I think we absolutely need to run out and hire somebody to do research. I guess I was just thinking it's a thought, it's an idea, it should be a possibility for a planning board working on a master plan. But maybe it's not necessary for this. Maybe I just overreacted.
No, there's no bad ideas. It's like I think throw them out there, and this is the discussion we have. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make you feel like, I was shutting that down. It was more just kind of thinking aloud, how would that work? So I appreciate all the ideas. Okay. Do we have I think we at least have one clear action item, which is we're going to, take some time to review what was sent out. Maybe folks can kind of think about for the next meeting, what sort of some next steps might be, that we can action on. That sound good? Okay. All right. Good discussion, everyone. And thank you. Just want to take a minute to thank Shandell and Abby and Cindy for their hard work putting this together. I know especially sometimes you're going through stuff, and it really is a large amount of work that you need to go through to understand and cut through this. So thank you, everyone. We appreciate your work on this and bringing it back to the board. All right. Let's move on to next agenda topic, which is planning board goals for 2026. So this is something Abby had brought up. I'd been kind of thinking about it myself also, that probably be good, as here we are, it's June, maybe think about if we have any goals as a planning board for what we want to achieve in the next year. And I know we've already started talking about some of them around zoning amendments and what we want to, refer to zoning bylaw committee, or things we might want to look at ourselves, and zoning map changes. But I thought it would be a good opportunity to at least introduce the idea of having, we don't have, I'm not looking for goals in terms of like, oh my God, if we don't meet our goals, we've failed as a board, but more of just something to give us kind of a guiding North Star about how we want to operate and what we want to focus on, because there's so much. And there are so many good ideas. And if we try to take on everything, it's going to be really, really hard. And so I think it would be good for us to kind of just, if folks agree, just, put a couple of ideas out there about where we think we can really add the most value to our citizenry, even, and what we can focus on, what we want to bring forward to town meeting, and where we really want to put our efforts over the next year, so that when new things come in, we can kind of weigh them as a board and say, you know what, we've got to kind of put that aside for now, but we, because we have these other priorities that we want to focus on, acknowledging that there's business that we have to attend to that we can't always control, which is, things like site plan reviews, special permits, major modifications, minor modifications, and things like that. But so I just wanted to introduce that topic and see what folks thought about it. Lisa.
Yeah, the thing that comes to my mind, one of them, because I'm new on this committee, but obviously I've been thinking about, the whole process of planning and the review of the projects and my experience on the DRB and what that's like. I I have been looking at the site plan review, the bylaw, and you'll maybe remember at least one of the recommendations I have for a bylaw amendment relates to this. I think it would help if we got really clear about the site plan review process, and if we feel that there are problems with it, as I think some people do, problems for us, making it more difficult for us to review projects. I think we could maybe discuss them and figure out how we can find solutions for that. About the scheduling in particular, and the things that are required, what we ask for, and getting very clear about what the things we have a right to ask for and a right to expect, the timing of things. Because I know from the DRB, it's maybe even worse than the planning board, believe it or not, because like they find out at very last minute, hey, there's a project. And the planning board's gonna review it on such and such a date. So we got to get together. We've got to get the materials. We've got to do a review before this. Like, and we have no other chance, and this is it, and we've got to do it. It just doesn't seem fair. Some of the times, especially this issue of the changes, the revisions, that bylaw is not set up for any revisions, the applicant's revisions. The timing is not set up to acknowledge that in a fair way. Why we're tripping over ourselves to try to get things done, within a set deadline when there's changes coming at us all the time. So one thought, it isn't it specific about the zone or the bylaw recommendations, the changes, the amendments that we recommend, but focus on the whole site plan review process.
Yeah, I think I like that idea, Lisa, especially like, we had kind of some stuff we've talked about the 100-day period, the 65-day period. So let's Lisa, could I ask you as clerk to kind of help in keeping a running list as ideas come down? Would that be okay?
Well, so what I should be asking? So what's gonna happen here with the minutes? So this is being recorded by Chris, always recorded by Chris. So this recording will go to the person who drafts the minutes for us. It will come back to me as the clerk to, like, I don't know, or will it come back to me first? No, maybe it should.
Yeah, I think that's so. So generally the clerk has sort of just been the person who maybe the clerk hasn't really had much to do on this board because we have someone who takes the minutes. So maybe to your point, before I start changing the roles and responsibilities on you now that you've been identified as the clerk, maybe we should talk about roles and responsibilities if we want to change them.
I have no problem. I do have time to do it. And I have no problem being more involved with the handing off or preparation of some sort of process with the minutes. I have no problem with that at all. And since you're asking me now to like make a list, I'm not sure why, if there's a recording, but you want me to.
Yeah, no, we can use the recording. We can use the recording. I just wasn't sure if someone could, just kind of keep me on my toes in terms of, checking as I'm writing things down too.
I think it would be very good for me to get the recording, frankly, and to get the minutes, the draft of the minutes. I could check for typos. I could be the person that checks for typos, real obvious issues before it goes to the board, right?
Yeah, I think that would be great if you're willing to do that.
Okay.
And I am keeping a list. So I've heard site plan review process, the scheduling around it. We're kind of looking at the whole thing. I think Nathan, there's some things in the chat. Oh no, never mind. You've got your hand up.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to say a lot.
Okay.
I put it in the chat because I like writing things, and weirdly, I can't chat with everyone in the meeting or members. So yeah, I agree. On the list was, a review of the site plan review process overall. Just I think that's something we should do every year. As we learn something new, is there's, challenges we've been through in the process, as if there's standard clauses we want to adopt and insert, because things have changed, or legal has come up with some blah blah blah, whatever it is. I do think it'd be valuable for this board to find a way to have better relationships with other boards, understanding their struggles, understanding what they're doing every day, understanding where development and other things might impact them. And then, as always, we may need to write this in, but into a piece of legislation, but I just think clear authority at mechanisms and targets for clawbacks. We basically have two opportunities in one of those zoning for clawbacks. Having a clear mechanism where we're like, okay, we want this amount of money because we are going to take away this amount of parking requirement, and this is the fund that it is going to, whose purpose is to do this, would be a better way of doing that, right? Like, let's agree where the money's going. Let's agree what it's going for. Let's not just and let's figure out what our targets are. What are the things that we really are willing to sort of have a conversation about? Do we actually need that? And for some of us, not all of us, parking is is a thing for me. I see empty parking lots everywhere, and I'm happy to continue to have that conversation. But there's other places we might want to have that conversation as well, if we're going to give something back to the developer that we would like, something great out of, or something at least that furthers the town. I had some other ideas, but I can talk about them later. But my hands out, so I don't monopolize time.
Okay, well, let's go to Abby, and then we can always come back. Nathan?
Nathan, if you have more to say, I'm happy to wait. No? Okay. And by the way, as far as parking goes, have a conversation with DCR because they own the two biggest parking lot. Okay, so one of the things that that Megan and I had talked about was, a discussion of goals for the year, and I had taken a stab at some updating the rules and regulations, including the application forms, which also touches on the site plan review timing discussion. It would be great if we could create a handbook for new members, and that's something that I know a lot of other towns have done, and they've based it off of what other towns have done. So there is definitely precedent for that. There are zoning updates, obviously, that really need to be done, and the zoning code in general really needs to be cleaned up. I took CPTC did a drafting zoning amendments class, and it was fascinating. I learned so much, and there's definitely a lot of opportunity here with the current state of our zoning code to clean it up in totally non-provocative ways, but ways that just make sense, and kind of typical, like generally accepted ways to do things that it would probably be good for us to adopt. I'd like to see expanded public outreach, increase public input, and figure out a way to do that. Chandel had the idea a while ago about doing quarterly meetings in different parts of town, almost like open houses, and doing some outreach to the various communities and just understanding what their priorities, concerns are, kind of informal, but it's information that really would be helpful. We're elected, we represent the people. We want to know what they're thinking and wanting. Obviously, completion of phase 1 and phase 2 of the master plan, and then, additional planning projects and appropriate funding, if any are needed. But it would be great to be able to kind of chunk everything into whatever categories we choose and then figure out what our year is going to look like and what we reasonably can do.
Thank you, Abby. Before I get back to Nathan, anyone else who hasn't spoken yet? Shandell or Nancy? Okay. Oh, Nancy, go ahead.
I have been writing lots and lots of notes. I think I have over 10 pages, but I think there's been many great ideas that have come through just talking about it amongst ourselves. And it also gives us all a kind of a guideline of where everybody else is thinking about things. I don't talk much, everybody knows that. But I mean, some of these ideas, they're my notes and they're put in my shorthand, but they're just fantastic. And I think we have a great base to work from. But most of all, we need to work together. And that's really important too. We might not have the same vision or the same opinion about something, but at least as board members, we can respect each other and listen. And then if you don't agree with it, just take a little time with it and come back and say, no, I don't agree with that. That's fine. But if we're solid together, this whole board would be solid together. And when we go out to the community to talk with them, because that's one of the big things here is about getting the community more involved. If we come together on this, I think the town people would be very impressed. And they feel heard. And they also have great ideas. And it is a process. We're a tiny town. We're not Quincy. We're not Boston. We have an ability to create a community here that most people would probably be envious of. And probably start asking us, how did you do that? We've been wanting to do something like that for our town. Just like when you look out to other communities for whatever projects you're involved in, and you can say the same thing about that other town. So we're really on a good track, and I'm glad we took the time. And I know we're going to have word for word notes, but sometimes it's just the idea, the short idea. Like I say, I write in my own shorthand. But and I think each of us can just take a small part of it and work on it. It doesn't have to be 4 or 5 people that constantly volunteer. I think all of us can have a part in it and still keep this committee great. That's me.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you. I agree. And I do think this is a great group. And I think we got some feedback recently from a citizen that said they were really impressed with how we, spoke with each other and sorted through things in the last public hearing that we had. So I did want to pass that along to folks. And I think that's something we can all be proud of, how we conduct ourselves on this board. So I agree. Thank you. Nathan, I'll come back around to you if you have additional thoughts.
I'm happy to say them, but I realize this list is a lot. So,
It's all right. Like let's
But
get it all out there because
I
then
do, yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
no, please. So I do think it would be helpful for folks in the room just to have a better understanding of the regional planning agency's perspective on things. They have an opinion, they have a perspective, they have a written plan that sort of says how they believe growth and development should happen across the municipalities within the, I forget how many number these days, for the region, right? So having a better understanding of the regional context of planning might be helpful when we're thinking about what our housing targets might be, what transportation is going to look like or should look like for us. Those are things that I think are just important background information and knowledge to have. Folks that have been to the South Shore, whatever it's called these days, I probably have heard some of these presentations, but I think it probably is a good perspective for everyone. I do think it's important to have a better understanding of the funding mechanisms of the state, like processes and opportunities that are out there. That might be helpful. And then finally, I guess I give some pushback on this one, but I want to understand how is it that we can be a better partner to town staff, right? They all have very busy jobs. They're working, I mean, that not just folks in our committee, but throughout the town, right? They're also serving committees, et cetera, et cetera. They're working in the middle of the day, but during normal hours, but they're also here at night at like 9:40. You don't get me at my best at 9:40, I promise you. I'm a completely different human if you get me at 6 a.m. But so I'm trying to figure out how can we best partner with folks in the town. Can we better understand their processes? How do we understand how something gets from point A, over in Lori West's shop over to this place? Understanding those processes of the town might help us to be a better partner and just be more knowledgeable when working with the folks we have to work with, and want and enjoy working with the ones that are on the call. There we go. I don't want to offend anyone.
I think
That's all.
those are great ideas, Nathan, and I agree with that we need to, support our staff and in the same way they support us, and also work with, our neighbors and other citizens who are also members of the town staff. We will only succeed if we all work together. So those are great items. Abby.
I forgot one thing, but I know the other thing that I was going to say is that it would be nice if we could put a call out to the community while we're trying to figure out or determining which zoning changes we are going to aim to put forward at town meeting next year. I think we should get public input in case there is something that is on a lot of people's minds, and it may also facilitate the process instead of citizens petitions. If something is a really great idea, then maybe the planning board should take it up, but at least, and I'm not saying, other people would vote on the decision about what we would bring forward, but I think it would be a nice opportunity to hear what people are thinking about. And if there's a way to kind of solicit that input just so people can send us ideas, I think that would be great.
Let's bring that up when we get to the zoning amendments discussion, but I think that's a good idea. What was your other idea?
I can't remember. Oh, the regional planning agencies. Yes. And they're great about putting information out on their website. There's a lot of good information out there. We just have to figure out how to tap into it and be alerted to it.
So I think I thank you everyone for sharing these ideas. what I'd like to do is give folks some time to kind of reflect, kind of digest the ideas that have been shared. Think if they have additional ideas. And maybe what we could think about is how then do we sort of rank and prioritize, from all the things that are here? Because I've heard I've heard, I think, a couple different flavors too that we can tackle. Like to Nancy's point, things like understanding, better understandings of the funding mechanisms, or better understanding of the regional planning agency perspective. That's a kind of education that we can all do. Each of us kind of say, okay, we're kind of committed to this sort of learning or education. And then there are other things where we may want to say, you know what, we want to really, we know we need to do the master plan. We know we want to refer go through our list of zoning amendments. We know that, and that covers some of it. And we know that we also, for example, like we might want to prioritize then rules and regulations or a handbook for new members. So I think we just need to figure out how do we want to get sort of that a kind of consensus as a board. We could potentially do something where we kind of put everything into a, Google Doc and ask people just to rate things, and then, sort of go over what's been rated at the top and, discuss. I think that would be okay in terms of open meeting law, right, Chris? As long as we kind of went over it in the meeting. Or is it sort of a...
No, I think I
No.
asked someone from the state like a year ago about a Google Doc, and they were like, "Yeah, you can't do that."
What about so like any doc though? Like if we like had to, like
You could
basically
send,
any...
probably
It's...
the best way to do it would be to send us, like, put your things in order and we can put it
Okay.
into some kind of table.
Okay.
Or a
Yeah.
doodle poll if questions were very specific. I don't know.
Well, I think
That's
like if we
get
have
into
the
deliberations, so it's
yeah, like if we have the list of topics, right? Like everyone just gave us a nice list of things. Could everyone send your top, like top, three, things like we really want to see happen this year, and to Chris and Matt, and then we can kind of go from there. But maybe it's something we think on. But Lisa, go ahead.
Well, I would be willing to like type this up the best I can, and I could send it to people in an individual, because we discussed it here, and then maybe people could rank them, just put them in order. I don't think we should just choose the top three, because that means that some of the ones that still might be important are just left out, and we
Yeah.
don't really know. So I think, I mean, it might not be too much to ask for people to simply put them in their order of their concern. Just start there and then look at what we've got, the ones that are higher on the list. It seems like it'd be easy then to discuss it that way.
Yeah, I think that would.
Lisa, just put your list together, send it to us, and we'll disseminate.
Okay, will do.
With that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
will do.
Thank you, Lisa. I really appreciate that. Okay, anyone have any concerns with that approach? All right. Go ahead, Nathan.
So I think it's a good start, but these things are not equal in terms of effort, right? So we have a finite amount of effort and time that we are able to spend on any one of these or any
Yep.
collection of them. I think we should rank importance and our passion behind it. I think we should also be thinking about what is the level of effort in terms of time and resources as well, right?
Yeah.
Reading in the executive summary like of APC's regional travel plan, or sort of, I don't know why I keep calling them travel, because I think of CTPS in the same breath. Sorry, it's a lot. That's a little minimal effort. Then have a conversation about it versus let's actually do some of this stuff that takes a lot more time and energy.
Yeah, and I think what I'm trying to get at is not necessarily to like make make binding decisions on this with the ranking, but more of just to get it into a state where we can kind of have that conversation together efficiently. So maybe it is, yeah, if we can kind of just start with sort of here's the list and people, provide their rankings, but if people can also think about like, hey, here, like, here's some learning someone could just do on their own, or here maybe are some things that we might want to recommend to a subcommittee, then we can have that, we can have a more effective discussion around it then. That's sort of my thinking there, is just to allow us to kind of organize ourselves as best we can going into that discussion. Okay. All right. Thank you again, Lisa. I appreciate it. Okay. Why don't we move on to the zoning amendments discussion? So this is one, I think this is now kind of, it's a little bit of a sub bullet almost of the planning board goals, but we have a list of kind of ideas that Lisa brought to the table, and I think it's been shared with everyone. I know there are some other ideas out there, and we've got the zoning map changes, and I think those are sort of two. And what we talked about in our last meeting doing is sort of bringing forward to the DBC in a joint meeting, kind of our recommendations for here's what we would like to refer to them. I know, having we want to have them take a look at the zoning map as well, and then and here's what we're going to look at, and maybe here's what we're going to table for now. So would it make sense, and this is kind of going along the lines of, we're getting close to 10 o'clock, so how do we kind of generate ideas and collate them and kind of get them into a place where we are ready to bring things forward? Would we want to do a subcommittee? I feel like I'm like subcommittee lady now. But would we want to do like a small subcommittee to take a look at, kind of, ideas generated from board members? I know Lisa's got a great list we can start from. We can have other people send their ideas to Chris and Matt to be added to that list. And then there could be a subcommittee that kind of looks at identifying and prioritizing those, along with maybe looking at the zoning map changes and what we might need to do there, and then bringing it back to the group and saying, okay, here's our thoughts. Planning board, what do you think? Yes, good. Let's bring it to the ZBC and then have a joint meeting with them. And then how would that fit in with sort of Abby's suggestion, which I think is also a good one, of what's out there in the community? And I think we kind of attempted a couple of years back to do a call of, come bring your ideas so we can help. So putting that out there, Lisa.
Yeah, I don't think you need to combine the zoning map with the proposed amendments to zoning bylaws. I think we're close to just getting that wrapped up. I think at this point, I just found a few issues and I sent them to Matt, and it obviously just looks like they need to be researched. I think we're really close. If he can, if he finds out that information, it looks like we're really close to just, like, we could get to the point where we could just approve it and then be comfortable putting it out there. So I don't think there's a lot of big discussion, or because I'm not proposing any changes to it. I mean, I don't think that we were suggesting we have to consider major changes to the map. I mean, we could, but I don't think I think we can approve the map first. Get the map out.
Yeah, no, if that's close, then yeah, maybe we just have Matt make those updates and then but I think it kind of got buried, not buried. It kind of got put under there because I was thinking we want to maybe I think we want to bring that to the ZBC as part of that joint meeting, but I agree, it's a separate topic.
Yeah, honestly, Matt did the research for his proposed changes. He did that research and he sent us that information and identified where the mistakes were made, or in all that. And that was all good. And then I found like 5 more that
Okay.
were not explained. And it's like as soon as he can get that, find that you need a map before 2001. We really need to see what that looked like to identify when that change was made. We need to know the town meeting when the change was made. We need to know when the mistake, if it was a mistake, when it happened. And as soon as that, on those 5, it seems like everybody should be fine unless people find other mistakes, but I think it just comes down to that. And then we at least could approve it, the one that I guess the town has been using. We can approve it and we could put it on the town website. And then separately, if anyone has suggestions about changing anything, it's a separate thing, seems to me. The other thing I wanted to say is like, Nate, when you mentioned that issue of it sounds like you were talking about pilot payments, payment in lieu of, not in lieu of taxes, but you called it clawbacks or something, but the way that people may pay in instead of providing the parking spaces. Is that what you were talking about?
Pretty much in this particular case, it's
Yeah,
parking, right? Like what? Yeah.
there's a very clear bylaw. The bylaw actually explains it. The bylaw actually is good. But the thing is, the board didn't use it, didn't refer to it, didn't make sure that it was actually in the conditions for, say, Paragon Dunes. The language is there in the bylaw. So then it might be that we want to look at that bylaw and make sure, maybe reword it so that it makes more sense to people. You know what I mean? Something is there, but it's been overlooked. So it sounds like it would still fall into the category of zoning amendments, the zoning bylaws to look through. It really is. It's a specific one. I don't know offhand, but it's actually written there.
So I think I don't want to have us talk about the zoning amendments here right now.
No, I'm just pointing out it actually what Nate was mentioning as a topic, a new topic, is actually relates to a specific zoning bylaw. So it actually would be maybe clarifying it, changing it, whatever, but it actually is existing language, it sounds
Yeah,
like.
and if it's existing, let's add it to the list so that we all take a look at it, and can look at that. But so as far as so the zoning map changes, let's sort of keep that, kind of wrap that one up. Chris, I thought you had said that was something that was. Are we in agreement that that once we approve the zoning map, we should show it to the zoning bylaw committee, or should we meet with them first and get?
Yeah, that we're going to sit down, like kind of the group getting all together, just kind of going over how we got to where we were. Just want to make sure everyone's kind of on board with the changes that have been made. That's all.
Before we approve that. So I think that could be in that joint meeting. And then for the zoning amendments, what I'd like to leave here with tonight is just sort of an idea of how do we want to get to that group of amendments that we want to recommend to the ZBC. Because we've got a lot and they're all great ideas, but what do we think is actually, what other ideas are out there, that might not have been collected yet. I want everybody to send their ideas to Chris so he can add them to the list. And then how are we going to sort of decide what gets prioritized and moved forward? And so that's sort of my question is, do we want a subcommittee or do we want to somehow do that as a group? And how do we just keep that moving? Abby.
Would it need to be a formal subcommittee, or could it just be a few folks who are going to take a first crack at it? That way, If it's a subcommittee, it's much more formal, and I believe meetings need to be posted, and you know, the reality is, you know, evening meetings there are a lot of them already. So it's when we were working on the master plan draft, it was kind of like, you know, very, very fluid. Like, oh no, I'm suddenly not available because so it was
So
that's what
I,
I'm trying to say.
I think we should check with town council on that because my understanding from the open meeting law training is that if you're I mean, if you, I'm not sure if you call it something different, but it acts like a subcommittee and looks like a subcommittee that gets
Well,
you out of the open meeting law.
Well,
Still open
I'll give
meeting.
you an example. Like on the ZBC, Julia Parker and Jason got together and worked on the NBOD revision and then presented it to the ZBC. And that was not it was, you know, two people worked on it and shared it because they just thought that they would be helpful and work on it.
I think that Chris, go ahead.
So is the goal to identify a specific number of zoning amendments and send that to the zoning bylaw review committee to draft it for us? Is that the goal?
No, the goal is to identify what we want to refer to them. Yes, we want to
For
bring
them
it
to draft?
Well, we want to bring it to the joint meeting to be able to say, this is what we are proposing that, you know, we'd like you to take a look at and draft. Yes. And there might be things that we say we're going to take a look at, you know, the site plan review, like, you know, time the deadlines around that.
Because I think it makes most sense for us to work on site plan.
Yeah, but I
revisions.
don't I think what I want to figure out is how can we whittle down that list without it taking up an entire meeting of discussion. Is there a way to be able to get, you know, have a group look at it and say, you know what, this is what we think we should look at, or, you know, should we do the same thing that we're going to do with the goals and kind of just have everybody rank their listed items and then we'll come back and discuss it.
If it's less than a quorum,
I would check with town council. The open meeting law training really made it sound like if you're meeting on a topic and it's, you know, and it is 3 people, that looks like a subcommittee. I could be wrong, but why not just check?
we'll needed to follow up with him on some stuff anyway.
So, okay, so I'm not hearing any sort of, what action do we want to take on this, if any, tonight? Lisa and then Chris?
Yeah, I feel the same, that I'm not comfortable with the idea of a few individuals like whittling the list down and then presenting the larger group with the ones to be considered. I really feel like the whole group should be involved with that decision about which things to consider. I know it's kind of a drag, but I'm not saying that we need to discuss them all in one meeting, you know, but I think somehow presenting the whole list of everybody's ideas, we can clearly write it down and having people maybe rank them again, or just check off the ones that they support so that we get a sense of what people actually on their own are really interested in. I just don't like the idea of a few people deciding which particular group, you know, the planning board should even consider.
Okay. Chris and then Abby?
I just quickly looked it up. It said, any subcommittee created by a public body to advise or make recommendations must comply with the law's requirements, regardless of its size or advisory status.
So a subgroup, calling it a not subcommittee doesn't change the fact that it's a subcommittee. We can still create one. It just has to follow open meeting law.
Yeah, that follow the rules. Yeah.
Which we all agree is important. Abby.
I just wanted to clarify, Lisa, I don't think that we'd be talking about anybody whittling down the list. I think it would just be some people taking a first crack at prioritizing so that there was an opportunity for people to react to it. So, no, I think that that's a stupid idea. Don't put that at number 3, or, we absolutely need to do X, Y, and Z. That should go back up in the top 10, so that there's at least a framework to react to, but no decisions would be made by any group other than the full board. I think that, Megan, I'm guessing that's what you were getting at.
Yeah, it would be a subcommittee going off kind of bringing back their recommendations that we would then discuss. And that discussion could involve saying, no, we disagree with these recommendations, and we go back to the drawing board. I'm comfortable either way. I just feel strongly that we want to have some way identified of how we want to proceed, so that we can continue to make progress. So I hear both sides. I think however the board wants to proceed, I'm comfortable. Nathan.
Great. Can we just get I don't care about the mechanics, I guess, as much. To me, it seems like put a list together, send it out as a Google form that goes back to staff form, meaning like we don't see each other's answers. There's no collaboration. There's no discussion. Like it goes back to staff, it ranks it, and then you have it. And then staff comes back and shares us, hey, this is how you guys all voted, how you ranked. What do you think? This is the average. This is the Google form just makes an average. 50% of you think that this should be the first thing, 75 thinks it should be the second. That seems like a way of doing it, or just old school, somebody put in a spreadsheet and we do individual spreadsheets back with numbers on the side, and someone does an average. If we want to do something in between meetings and not have this and have something to react to that says, hey, each member, here's where we have alignment clearly, here's some places where we don't. What do we want to do about it?
I like that idea, Nathan. Chris and Matt, is that something you would be able to help us coordinate? Like if we can, ask if folks can, between now and maybe if folks can send your additional suggestions to Chris and Matt. Chris and Matt, you'd put them, in a Google form with the documented list that Lisa has already provided, so that it's all in one place, and then circulate with the board members, and each board member fills out their preferences, and returns them to town staff to collate, and then we have something to react to. Abby?
We can do that.
I'm wondering if it would be at all helpful to spend some time as a board just having a general discussion about ideas of things that we'd like to see, or if there is a hill that someone wants to die on, and something is just they think that it is so critical and have a reason why it is. Have the opportunity to share that with the board so that there's a little bit of context before ranking those. But if folks don't think that that's necessary, then that's fine too.
I think that unless I hear from our folks that they want to do that, maybe we can do that as part of, when we get into this discussion, if you had a hill if someone has a hill they want to die on or a hill they don't want to die on, that perhaps, they could discuss it at that point and that can then factor into what we would actually move forward with. Because I think there's probably going to be some different hills, sort of like Hull. We have different hills.
As long as there's an opportunity to,
Yeah.
at some point, have a discussion about.
Yeah. I think I see this very much as just a tool to facilitate that discussion, not as a decision-making tool.
Okay.
Does that make sense? I thought I saw a hand. Did I see a hand?
Nathan was.
Yeah, that was me. It makes sense to me to do it this way, so we at least get started. And then I anticipate people saying, "Oh, hey, I forgot about this."
Yeah.
Because from last year's discussion where we went through this horrible thing, we really should fix that. I don't think we have an exhaustive list, but it'd be nice to start working through it sooner rather than later because it takes so long to get there otherwise.
Yep.
Oh,
Okay. Oh, go ahead,
I'm
Nathan.
sorry, I just thought I heard somebody say they moved to adjourn.
Oh boy, I didn't hear anyone actually make that motion. But let me go to Lisa, and then if someone does have a motion that they would like to make, I would entertain it. Hi, Lisa, go ahead.
Yeah, I would be a little bit concerned about, the Google sort of option, because that I'd be worried that we put this effort into putting this thing together and then some people would struggle with it. I also feel the same about Excel because not everybody's got the app and not everybody does. I'm thinking if we can get it into some sort of Word document, and people can simply copy and paste the separate items in the order of priority for them. That might be the easiest way. I know, I'm guessing that might be the easiest way for most people to do this sort of thing, and then send it to Matt, and to Chris. You know what I mean? In a Word document. Send it to them in a Word document and have people just move them around or add their own to it, and send it back to those guys. Just a thought.
Would it be okay if we went with the Google and Excel document, but if somebody prefers, they could go with the Word option? I'm not sure. I know for me that wouldn't be easier, but maybe if for the rest of the board it would be. I'm also, I'm merely the chair. It is not my aim to dictate how we do this. So however the board wants to do it is fine. Shandell?
I move to adjourn.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor.
I second that motion.
We've got a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Hayden, aye.
Any opposed? All right. Aye. It is a vote, and we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it. Good meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Have a good night,
Walk the
everyone.
dog now.
Thank you.
Well, have fun with that.
Bye.
Have a good night.
Good night.